It is the most ambitious airport project Europe has ever seen. $30 billion, engineered to move tens of millions of civilians by day and in crisis to unleash NATO's rapid response, might overnight. Poland calls it Port Polska, an aviation and rail hub built on the raw edge of Europe's shifting security map. But with this much at stake, national pride, military logistics, and the hopes of an entire region, can one airport really become both Poland's economic lifeline and its shield against a new era of danger? The cost, the controversy, and the race to redefine the front line all begin here. The financial commitment behind Port Polska is staggering. The National Investment Plan allocates 131 billion zloty, more than 30 billion euros, by 2032. This is not just a sum on paper. It represents the largest transport infrastructure investment ever undertaken in Central and Eastern Europe. The Polish state, through its treasury and the operator Polskie Porty Lotnicze, stands as the primary financier. Polskie Porty Lotnicze alone is expected to contribute nearly 4.6 billion zloty by the end of the decade, with the ambition of eventually holding full ownership of the airport operator. Additional funding is set to flow from European Union grants, commercial loans, and corporate bonds, weaving together public and private capital on a scale rarely seen for a single project. This is more than a construction budget. It is a statement of intent, a public wager on Poland's future. The rebranding from Centralny Port Komunikacyjny to Port Polska is no mere marketing gesture. It is a deliberate act of national storytelling. The vision is clear: a gateway to Europe, a symbol of modernity, and a project meant to rally public pride. Official announcements frame Port Polska as the country's new calling card, a place where aircraft from around the globe will land at all hours, and where rail lines will converge from every corner of the nation. With this level of state-driven investment and branding, Port Polska is designed to be more than functional infrastructure. It is intended as a monument to ambition, a physical marker of Poland's arrival as a central player in European transport and security. The scale of the commitment, both financial and symbolic, sets the stage for what comes next: the transformation of land and landscape in pursuit of a vision that carries both opportunity and risk. 37 kilometers west of Warsaw, the landscape is being redrawn at a scale rarely attempted in modern Europe. The planned footprint of Port Polska stretches across 2,500 to 3,000 hectares, an area large enough to swallow entire villages and still leave room for expansion. This is not just a terminal and a few runways, it is a new city carved out of farmland, with the ambition to rival the world's largest aviation hubs. At its core, the master plan calls for 2 parallel runways, each extending nearly 4 kilometers. These runways are built to handle the heaviest civilian and military aircraft, matching the standards of the biggest European and global airports. The design leaves space for a 3rd and even a 4th runway, should future demand require it. From day one, the airport's passenger capacity is set between 34 million and 40 million travelers per year, a number that places Port Polska in the same league as London Heathrow, Paris Charles de Gaulle, and Istanbul Airport. Yet the site is engineered for growth. Expansions can push capacity even higher without a complete overhaul. The scale is not just horizontal. The airport's layout integrates a central terminal complex, a vast network of taxiways and aprons, and logistics zones that blur the line between passenger and cargo operations. The entire site is mapped to connect seamlessly with high-speed rail lines and major highways, transforming a rural corridor into a logistics artery for the nation and the continent. The location, set deliberately away from the congestion of Warsaw but close enough for a 20-minute rail trip, reflects a vision of Poland as the crossroads of Europe, capable of moving people and goods at a pace and volume few other hubs can match. This is the physical reality behind the investment. Hectares of land, kilometers of concrete, a passenger flow measured in tens of millions. Here, ambition is measured in square kilometers and runway length, not just in blueprints and budgets. The vision for Port Polska's main terminal breaks from the conventions of European air travel. British architects Foster and Partners, renowned for their work on global transport icons, have been tasked with creating a structure that is both monumental and adaptable. Their design centers on a single sweeping roof, an architectural gesture that unifies arrivals, departures, and transfers under one vast canopy. Beneath that roof, the heart of the airport unfolds as a modular system. Terminal zones can be expanded or reconfigured as demand shifts, with passenger flows channeled through a sequence of bright, open halls. At ground level, the airport fuses with a stacked interchange where a high-speed rail station sits directly below the terminal. This is not a mere afterthought or a separate wing. Rail and air are designed to operate as one system. Passengers arriving by train can move vertically through the terminal, stepping from platform to check-in within minutes. The station itself is engineered to handle both conventional and high-speed lines, with platforms long enough to accommodate the newest rolling stock in Europe. The modular approach extends to the entire interchange. Concourse extensions, baggage zones, and even retail spaces are conceived as plug-and-play units, allowing the airport to grow in phases without major disruption. Foster and Partners' blueprint envisions not just a place to catch a flight, but a new kind of mobility hub where infrastructure anticipates change and where the logic of connection defines the architecture. Every choice, from the single-span roof to the integration of rail and road, is meant to reinforce Poland's ambition to build a gateway that is as flexible as it is futuristic, ready to serve millions, whether in peacetime or in crisis. Auditors from Poland's Supreme Audit Office arrived with questions that cut through grand ambitions. Their report, covering the years when the Law and Justice Party initiated the project, found gaps at every level, incomplete feasibility studies, shifting rail alignments, and a budget that ballooned from 35 to 45 billion zloty for the airport, alone to more than 130 billion zloty once rail and highways were included. Planning documents showed a project moving forward even as key technical analyses lagged behind. The audit flagged delays, rising costs, and a pattern of decisions made before alternatives were fully weighed. The controversy deepened with the sale of 160 hectares of land needed for a critical rail link. Records revealed the plot had changed hands at a price well below what independent assessors believed it was worth, just before its designation as essential to the airport's logistics corridor. Allegations surfaced that the buyer stood to profit once the state needed to recover the land, fueling accusations of insider advantage and mismanagement. The new government insisted it had recovered the parcel without extra cost, but the episode left a stain on the project's legitimacy. Mikołaj Wild, once the face of the airport's promise and a key architect of its early vision, found himself at the center of the storm. As CEO and former deputy infrastructure minister, Wild defended the project's logic in public forums, arguing that early missteps were normal for a scheme of such scale. Yet critics in parliament and the media accused his team of pushing ahead with flawed forecasts and insufficient consultation, risking public funds on a vision whose foundations were not fully set. The political battle over Port Polska became a test not only of Poland's ability to build at scale, but of its capacity to govern ambition with transparency. The audit's warnings echoed. A project meant to unite the nation was now dividing its institutions, and the cost of error could be measured in billions. In Baranow, the consequences of Poland's grand vision are measured not in billions, but in the quiet routine of rural life upended. Here, families who have tended the same fields for generations now face the prospect of losing everything to a project mapped out far above their heads, and the airport's planned footprint stretches across up to 30 square kilometers of farmland and villages, an expanse that means hundreds of homes and family farms are caught in the crosshairs. For some, the state's offer of compensation, 20 to 40% above government appraisals, sounds generous on paper, but many residents say those appraisals do not reflect what it would actually cost to rebuild a life elsewhere. Land values rise as word spreads, but official valuations lag behind, and the sense of home, built on memories and community, cannot be priced at all. In 2018, Baranow held a local referendum. Nearly 9 out of 10 voters rejected the airport, but the result was only advisory. Warsaw pressed on. Since then, the community has lived in limbo. Some families have accepted buyouts, hoping to move on before the bulldozers arrive. Others have refused, holding out against a future that feels both inevitable and unjust. The voluntary sales program introduced by the airport company is shadowed by the knowledge that refusal means eventual expropriation. Officially, most who leave do so voluntarily. Unofficially, everyone knows the state can take the land anyway. The only real choice is whether to go early or wait to be pushed. The uncertainty seeps into daily life. Renovations are postponed, fields go untended, and young people look elsewhere to build their futures. Neighbors who once worked side by side now find themselves divided, some welcoming the promise of jobs and investment, others mourning the loss of a way of life. For planners in distant offices, Brno is a strategic node. For the people who live here, it is simply home, a reality no blueprint can capture. For every field cleared and home surveyed, the debate over Port Polska's true purpose grows sharper. On one side, government officials and project backers point to a promise of transformation, tens of thousands of jobs, new industries clustered around the airport, and the chance for Poland to anchor itself as a logistics powerhouse at the heart of Europe. Early projections estimated that the airport and its surrounding development could generate over 150,000 jobs, both directly and in supporting sectors. Proponents cite the ripple effect: new hotels, tech parks, warehouses, and a surge in service jobs, all radiating from a single transportation hub. For a country where many regions still struggle with unemployment or outmigration, these numbers carry weight, but the scale of public borrowing required to realize this vision has fueled warnings from economists and opposition leaders. Poland's commitment, over 131 billion Polish zloty by the early 2030s, means taking on record levels of public debt. Critics question whether passenger forecasts are realistic or if the airport risks becoming an expensive monument to overreach. They warn that if traffic falls short or global travel patterns change, the country could be left servicing debt for decades, with little to show beyond empty terminals and stranded infrastructure. Since 2014, and especially after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, a new justification has taken hold. Security officials and national strategists frame Port Polska as critical insurance for an uncertain era. In speeches and policy documents, the airport is described as a bulwark, ready to move troops, aid, or refugees at a moment's notice. The dual-use logic is now woven into the project's DNA. Even if the economic returns are uncertain, supporters argue the strategic value makes the investment worthwhile. For some, this is the ultimate answer to local fears and national skepticism. For others, it is a sign that economic doubts are being papered over with the language of crisis and defense. The debate is no longer just about jobs or debt, but about what kind of future Poland is building and for whom. Port Polska's logistics backbone is engineered for scale rarely seen in European aviation. The airport's cargo system is projected to handle between 500,000 and 1 million tons of freight each year, an output that places it alongside the continent's most powerful hubs. To make this possible, technical partners like Vanderland have been brought in to design an automated baggage and cargo handling system on a staggering footprint of 80,000 square meters. Inside this labyrinth, more than 16 kilometers of conveyors will move bags and freight, connecting aircraft stands to customs, warehouses, and rail docks with industrial precision. Hill International's scope extends to the supporting airfield systems and maintenance facilities, ensuring apron and cargo zones can flex between commercial and crisis operations without missing a beat. In peacetime, this system moves everything from e-commerce parcels to pharmaceuticals. In an emergency, the same infrastructure can surge, redirecting flows for humanitarian aid, military equipment, or mass evacuation supplies. The hardware and software are built not just for volume, but for adaptability, making Port Polska a logistics engine ready for any scenario. Port Polska's location is more than a matter of geography. It is a deliberate anchor in Europe's alliance logistics. NATO's Joint Support and Enabling Command, JSEC, headquartered in Ulm, Germany, is tasked with planning and coordinating the movement of Allied forces across the continent. In a crisis, JSEC activates the reinforcement and sustainment network, connecting airports, rail hubs, highways, and seaports into a single web. Port Polska is designed to fit directly into this network, with its runways, rail lines, and cargo zones engineered for rapid transition from civilian to alliance use. The European Union's Military Mobility Initiative and the new EMIR's system add another layer, promising streamlined customs and border procedures with a 3-day benchmark for moving troops and equipment across borders. For Germany, the airport is both a competitor and a partner, potentially diverting some traffic but strengthening the eastern flank. Baltic states see it as their lifeline. In Washington, defense planners regard Port Polska as a future-proof node, ready to absorb and dispatch the flows demanded by any NATO contingency. Behind the public vision of Port Polska, critical details remain locked away. The airport's technical backbone, including runway strength, pavement classification, and load limits, has never been published in full. No official PCN value is available. For a project promising to handle the heaviest aircraft in Europe, this absence stands out. This silence extends beyond engineering numbers. The entire concept rests on centralization, a single node meant to carry the weight of Poland's civil and strategic aviation. In theory, centralization brings efficiency. In practice, it creates a singular point of vulnerability. A cyber attack, a technical failure, or a hostile strike could ripple across the entire network. NATO doctrine often favors redundancy, multiple dispersed hubs, to avoid precisely this kind of risk. As construction advances, the lack of transparency leaves open questions about resilience. What happens if the hub is disrupted? How quickly could traffic, reroute, or supplies reach their destination? In a world where infrastructure is both a promise and a target, the answers remain hidden, raising doubts about how prepared any single node can truly be. Today, Port Polska stands as more than concrete and ambition. It is a signal that in Europe's new age of uncertainty, infrastructure is strategy. As NATO and the EU race to reinforce their eastern flank, every runway and rail line becomes a potential front line. The future of security is not just written in treaties, but in the steel and asphalt beneath our feet. What will we build next, and for whom?